Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Humikane at YouTube with another model review. Today I am a part of a group build with Rantea of Mecha Workshop, and we attended the Anime Festival. We were also the administrators and ran the Mecha Workshop, sponsored by Bandai. We had updating kits to give away, competition and whatnot. And during our spare time at the workshop table, we managed to build a kit as a challenge. While wandering around the traders area before the convention opened on the Saturday, the gauntlet was dropped. This 2-pack set of figures was bought with the challenge of turning it into a Kantai Collection Mecha Musume build, fully finished and painted by Sunday, the end of the convention the next day, using only what's in the workshop. Being somewhat of a gentleman, I offered Richard the first pick and ended up with this black-haired character. Not sure of the story, series or whatnot behind her, and carried on to my usual tradition of sawing off the legs from the middle height of the thighs. Being soft vinyl poly material, it was a bit troublesome. It took a little help from my friend, and I could say doing this at a convention I did get some very odd looks and complaints while mutilating this figurine. My first task was to go through the club's bits box and see what I could use to either scratch build a set of legs or to utilise something from a half model kit left over. While digging, I found some Gundam Age 1144 Geno Ace first grade bits, which was a part of a previous giveaway, military missiles generic detail bits off a Zoid, and GNX 1-144 high grade legs, which was absolutely perfect to use as is. Pulled apart, cleaned them up, assembled it, and concentrated on detailing and mounting. Not to suffer from the effect of Panzer IV in outer space, I really hit up the GNX legs with tank tread detail around the sides and very front, with cut up styrene bulked all around the place, with a two-tone colour scheme that will be very well hidden. The backpack of the Geno Ace turned out to be excellent as a chest piece, sort of give it a bit of more bulky, make it a little less young looking, the figure. A bit of thins for the back, again ramming it with putty and contouring it to the back to be glued on later. I found a Cromwell turret in my toolbox for some unknown reason and utilised that. Happened to also bring along some brass cannons and glued on the shoulder pieces some torpedoes and chopped them to fit on the arms, as well as a goof sword for a weapon to be glued in the hand. I spent approximately 3 to 4 hours on it gluing. The legs was pinned onto the main torso so it's nice and sturdy, and when glued on the next day would definitely stay in place. To glue the pieces later after painting, I'll be using super glue, which I'll have to bring from home the next day, and putty used to contour the pieces to the body was Tamiya quick type epoxy putty, which only dries in a handful of hours. Richard was kind enough to lend me a little bit. Then the day finished. We had a lovely night, spent the convention socialising as well as carrying out the duties of the manager of the workshop. When I went home and packed for the next day, I grabbed primer, updating lacquer paints for a colour scheme, super glue, and a matte top coat, as well as Tamiya panel line accent for a tiny bit of inking. Some paint stands, paint pegs, and an airbrush. We had an airbrush rig of a generic compressor and extractor booth on site already. Normally the painting stage is difficult for a Mecha Musume because you've got existing painted figure, and hand painting is normally the way to go, not to disturb the face, clothes detail and flesh tone. This time around I built it in a way where everything was separated and can be glued on later. Lacquers was selected as if dusted on really finely, it is dry to the touch within seconds. I started with Tamiya primer, a couple of coats to get rid of any rough glue or sandpapering paper marks, as this was a very quick build, followed by colouring in the whole piece in sea grey by Mr. Hobby colour. The other pieces were painted in appropriate colours. The sword was done in Model Master buffable stainless steel. Everything was two-toned blue by freehand airbrushing. Once all of the airbrushing was done, this was just solid colouring, no shadings, no tonings. I hand painted some smaller details such as the missiles, the windpipe, and just other small tiny detail, especially those connected to the figure and the sword. Everything was top coated in Tamiya acrylic matte coat. Slight amount of pin washing here and there for mechanical detail, then assembled with super glue. By Sunday afternoon, with approximately 7 to 8 hours work on each of our entries, we were done within hours before the event finished for this final photograph. We'll talk about Richard's entry a bit. He used the old 1980s Gundam aftermarket set in 1/144 scale gun hammers to resemble sea mines, and did a helicopter slash destroyer look dancing across a field of sea mines. He utilised missiles as well as the backpack from the G Gundam Master Gundam old school 1990 backpack. I really enjoyed it. I think he did an exceptional job of, with a little putty and quite a bit of glue, assembling it. The challenge Richard had was he hand painted everything in very old water-based acrylics, and all the pieces needed about 2 to 3 coats, so he probably spent a significant more amount of time, where I was lucky enough to whip out an airbrush and just dust everything else on. All in all, from 2 figures that were bought into a set, pulled apart, and 2 completely different style of modelers hack away at it with a rough idea and inspiration of KanColle. Came together with 2 completely different styles of work, but somehow they partnered together quite well, and on display side by side, extremely appealing. I'm very impressed and happy with both efforts, and this turned out to be a very successful challenge and build-off among quite harsh restrictions over a short period of time. The challenge for me was utilising the correct parts that would require minimal scratch building or work, but having a maximum output of playing off the sexiness of the figure, as well as going for a look that I wanted to achieve. It was very fun, or almost like a jigsaw puzzle, of going through the bits box and just finding the parts that would fit or not, which nothing would obviously fit snug, and just imagining how I would trim it and modify it quickly to contour to the body. And that was simply of constantly cutting the piece until it looked like it fit enough and ramming putty in the inside. This process was a lot of fun. I think this is one of the best Mecha Musume theme builds I've done. I absolutely love the beret turrets. That absolutely does it for me, and I definitely will be attempting stuff like this again in the future. Again, I can't really express enough how much fun I definitely had with this build, and the fact that it was a group build with a very good friend of mine, and we've got pretty fun matching models. I cannot highly recommend enough for people to have a go at this. The figure was very cheap. The set was bought at something like $40, split in half. That was $20 a piece, and if you hunt around you can find figures a lot cheaper than that. And it's just a simple matter of digging into bits box, spare parts, styrene sheets, metal, putty, whatever you can get your hands on, and just having a bit of fun and doing something that you want to do. Go a bit wild with the color schemes. Doesn't have to be historically correct, doesn't have to reference anything. Whatever takes your fancy, whatever turns you on, you stick it on the figure. That all said and done, thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay tuned for further builds, reviews, tutorials, and other interesting content related to the hobby. Catch you guys later.